Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Thursday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and early 4 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, I've told you guys before how I pick a story. I like to go through everything, the far right, the far left, Fox News, One America, about 50 different media sites. And usually a story will pop. They'll stick with me. And I'll start going about my routine here. And the story will stick in my head. You know, I'll be doing something, I'll be making coffee or breakfast or something, and the story is still, I'm still reasoning the story in my head. It sticks with me. It makes me angry or happy. And when that happens, I know that's the story I'm going to go with. Today it was weird. I like to pick a different story too. Maybe some of you guys haven't heard of an obscure story, but something that's probably going to pop. Something that's going to become, the talking point for the day. So it's hard sometimes to pick a story. I was going to talk about Texas, and there's one Republican lawmaker and one parent that came out with these stories that started making the rounds in Texas about schools and furries. Now, furries, it's an adult thing. It's this fetish thing where adults dress up like animals, cats, dogs, whatever, and preen each other. It's a weird fetish thing. I think it's weird, fetish thing. And so these parents came out and said, well, now schools like elementary, whatever, middle schools are going to start accommodating furries. And there's, I've never heard of children doing this, but so these two started putting out these stories saying that they heard other people talking about how schools were going to accommodate for furries. Children that no longer consider themselves boys or girls, but consider themselves animals. Now I could see what this, you can see what this is all about. This is the argument that, well, geez, if we start considering like gay marriage, then what happens when somebody wants to marry an animal? Somebody falls in love with a cow, or that's really what this story links up. It's an extreme, ridiculous example. People fear mongering of these people are fearful of allowing gay people, everybody, to have their own, to have the rights of everybody else, and they start making up extreme scenarios for the future. So these two started talking about schools now, or they said this is a fault. This is not true. But they said these two said that they heard other people saying that the schools are going to start putting litter boxes in the schools for kids that identify as animals. And then they were going to start lowering the cafeteria tables, so for dog bowls or whatever. So these kids that identify as dogs or cats or whatever can eat on the floor. And this is, you can see right off the bat, most logical people could see right off the bat that this doesn't make any sense. Schools wouldn't do this. It doesn't make, and the furries aren't a kid thing. It's an adult fetish thing. Like I said, right off the bat, I recognized it as taking this fear-mongering to an extreme. Well, if we give these people rights, what happens when this happens, or this happens, or that happens? What happens when we have to give the rights to trees? And this is an example of that. So I was going to talk about that. Then I saw good old Tucker Carlson, and this story just ticked me off so much. Now, the Supreme Court is to me, it's a boring subject. I did not know that, Breyer is retiring. So, I wasn't really that interested in reading about it until I started watching Tucker Carlson and Fox News talk about this, and it started just ticking me off. So that's what I'm going to talk about, not the whole furries. I'm done with the furries. Now, just my thoughts on Fox News. So this whole thing here now, supposedly one of the Supreme Courts, I just found this out today. I did not know that one of the Supreme Court justices are retiring. So another one has to be nominated. Supposedly, Breyer is retiring. Now, on Fox News, they're more or less saying that Joe Biden is pushing him out. They're saying that Breyer didn't announce that he was retiring. The White House kind of jumped ahead of him and announced it for him. That's part of the story. Now, the second part of the story is when Biden was running for president, he promised to appoint the first African American Supreme Court justice. I think that's great. I love this idea. Here's my thoughts on this. Looking back, especially at the Trump administration, I remember seeing pictures of Donald Trump outside talking at a podium, and there would be like 100 Republican lawmakers or whatever behind him. You guys have seen these pictures, and it was nothing but a sea of Caucasian pasty faces, red ties, white bald hair, paunchy, just every single, just exactly every person. And that drives me nuts. I don't know if it's part of me being a Democrat, or now a Democrat, progressive. I think it's got more with me being an artist and just my personality. I love uniqueness. I love hearing other people's ideas, food, music, everything. I like new stuff or different things I just never experienced. So the idea of putting the first African-American woman into the Supreme Court sounds great to me. If I'm not mistaken, I was going to look up all the statistics for this. What's the percentage of African-American women? What's the percentage of Spanish-American? I was going to get all the percentages, but then, you know what? I'm just going to talk from my heart on this one. So I looked it up, and there is already a Spanish-American, Sonia Sotomayor. I think the Supreme Court should reflect America. And that's what Joe Biden was going for. And then I watched Tucker Carlson, and he was complaining that this is all reverse discrimination. He actually came out and said that that all that matters to Joe Biden is that she's a black woman. That is, she doesn't have to have any law experience or whatever. That's and in his eyes, that's extremely racist. So he actually insinuated that one of the likely candidates would be George Floyd's sister. And when I saw that, I started getting so angry. That became the story that was in my head for the day. I'll put the link down below. I'll be honest with you guys, I could not even watch the entire Tucker Carlson piece. I just kept getting so sidetracked and angry on his ridiculous arguments. He's making the argument that Joe Biden is not picking the most talented, the person that deserves the Supreme Court seat the most, but he's doing it all on race. And then he goes on to say that, well, what happens then? That Joe Biden sounds like a ward boss from Chicago, or he says something like that. That it's pretty soon that where are the Native Americans? Where are the disabled Americans? And he goes on to present all these scenarios that everybody's going to want their piece of the pie to sit on the Supreme Court if you do it this way. Personally, I think it'd be a great idea. I think there's far too many. I'll just get to the point of it. I just think there's far too many pasty Caucasian faces in politics. I think it's the good old boys network. I think in the back of people's heads, when they see the candidates, a lot of times, most of the people in politics today in Washington are white, older, wealthy males. And when they're presented with choices, they pick other wealthy, white males. That's just what they tend to do. The old boys network. That's why I sincerely believe that. And I think it takes an effort to get past that. I think, and as far as not being, not having the ability or, to be the Supreme Court justice, I would think, how many people in America right now have the qualifications, the background to be a Supreme Court justice? How many people in America could potentially be? At least a couple hundred, right? Out of the millions of people. And out of those millions, how many have law degrees and have been clerks and gone through the motions and been appointed judge, have the background to become a Supreme Court justice? I'd say, honestly, it has to be a couple hundred easily. Got to be a couple hundred. And, so out of those couple hundred, I don't see anything wrong with picking somebody that's representing part of America that's never been represented before. I think it's good for our country that an African-American woman would be represented. I think a lot of times people like me don't realize what's happening in certain areas. There's certain populations. It presents a different perspective. It presents more information, a bigger view. And I think that's always better than just a narrow, pasty, Caucasian, wealthy male view. That's my opinion, and I'll have the clip down below for this Tucker Carlson piece. Like I said, I honestly couldn't watch the whole thing. It was just so, his whiny freaking voice. So check it out for yourself. All right, you guys have a great Thursday.